The neon sign of the convenience store flickered against the midnight downpour. Inside, the harsh fluorescent lights illuminated a quiet, desperate scene. Liam Vance stood second in line. 34 years old, his sharp features were shadowed by exhaustion, his hands permanently stained with engine oil. He held a single, folded $50 bill. It was the remainder of his weekly wage from the auto shop, the only barrier between him and absolute zero. At the counter stood a woman. Clara Sterling possessed an effortless, striking beauty. Pale skin, piercing blue eyes, and damp blonde hair catching the stark light. Despite her elegant trench coat, she shivered slightly. The cashier slid her platinum card back across the scratched counter. The terminal beeped a harsh red. "Declined," the cashier muttered. Clara stared at the machine. She had a dead phone, a dead car battery, and a desperate need for simple painkillers. She controlled billions in assets, yet tonight, a sudden transition of power had temporarily frozen every account attached to her prestigious name. "Please try it again," she requested. Her voice remained remarkably steady, betraying none of the quiet panic tightening in her chest. Liam stepped forward. He did not look at her face. His exhausted eyes focused only on the register's total, $42.15. He laid his folded 50 on the counter. "Keep the change," he said to the cashier, turning toward the storm before she could even turn around. It took Clara's executive assistant exactly 4 hours the next morning to pull the convenience store's security footage. A pristine computer monitor illuminated the assistant's sharp features as she ran the rusted Chevy's license plates through a private database. The digital trail was faint, but immense wealth always secures an answer. A residential address finally materialized on the glowing screen. By 7 o'clock that evening, the sky had turned the color of bruised iron. A sleek town car idled quietly on 4th Street. Clara Sterling stood before a dilapidated apartment building, her designer trench coat contrasting sharply with the peeling exterior paint. She ascended the creaking wooden stairs to the 4th floor, her expensive heels clicking rhythmically against the worn linoleum hallway. She paused and knocked firmly on the heavy door of apartment 4B. The sound echoed in the damp, quiet corridor. The door creaked open. Liam Vance stood there in a plain white t-shirt, a towel casually draped over his broad shoulder. He looked dangerously out of place in the rundown hallway, his sharp features illuminated by a single flickering overhead bulb. Clara held out a crisp new $50 bill and a blank company check, her piercing blue eyes locking directly onto his. Liam glanced at the offered currency. His expression hardened into a mask of pure indifference. "I don't take back gifts," he stated, his voice a low, rough gravel. Clara did not retreat. "It wasn't a gift. You couldn't afford it," she replied. Liam simply shook his head, placing a heavy hand on the door to shut it. Before the heavy wood could close, Clara's sharp gaze drifted past his broad shoulder, catching a glimpse of the dimly lit living room inside. The space was starkly humble. A faded sofa, a child's colorful drawing taped to the wall, and against the far corner, a sturdy wooden bookshelf. Her piercing blue eyes locked onto a specific object, a thick, leather-bound spine resting heavily on the middle shelf, distinct among the clutter. The gold-embossed title caught the faint hallway light, the architecture of hostile defense. Directly beneath it, the author's name, L. Vance. The realization washed over Clara. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop instantly. Liam Vance was not just a mechanic. He was the vanished ghost of Wall Street. She slowly lowered the blank check. "My father was lost in an unforeseen aviation incident 2 months ago," Clara said, her tone shifting to cold absolute business. "Vanguard Dynamics is leveraging his absence to force a buyout, aiming to extract our R&D and liquidate our patents. I need the man who wrote that book." Liam looked at her, his face devoid of emotion. "That man is gone. I fix transmissions now. I am home to make my son dinner. That is my life." Clara did not plead or argue. With measured grace, she simply placed the crisp $50 bill delicately on the chipped wooden doorframe. "I came here for the man who gave a stranger his last dollar without hesitation," she said softly, her voice piercing the heavy silence. "If the man who wrote that strategic masterpiece is a different person entirely, then I apologize for the confusion." She turned and walked away. Her expensive heels echoed rhythmically down the dim, peeling hallway, leaving Liam standing motionless in the shadows. Liam watched her retreating figure until she disappeared down the stairs. Slowly, he pushed the heavy wooden door shut, leaving the money untouched on the frame. Inside the apartment, the silence was absolute. Liam leaned his broad back against the closed door, staring blankly into the dim, humble room. He walked softly over to the faded sofa. His 6-year-old son, Leo, was fast asleep, his small hands clutching a plastic toy airplane. Liam gently pulled a worn cotton blanket over the boy. His calloused, oil-stained hands moved with a quiet, unexpected tenderness. He sat down at the small, scratched kitchen table and illuminated his phone screen. His bank app displayed a stark reality: $12.04. Liam looked up from the glowing screen, his intense eyes locking onto the wooden bookshelf in the corner. Sleep would not visit him tonight. Pale morning light filtered through the dusty blinds of the small apartment. Liam was already awake, standing motionless in the narrow kitchen. He mechanically flipped a simple pancake in a worn iron skillet. His face held a new, rigid determination. The internal conflict of the night was over. 6-year-old Leo sat at the scratched wooden table, happily pouring cheap syrup over his plate, unaware of the heavy shift in the atmosphere. "Are you going to the garage today, Dad?" the boy asked. Liam paused. "No, buddy," he replied evenly. "A different kind of work today." By 8 o'clock, they stood on the chilly sidewalk. Liam zipped up the boy's jacket and watched in silence as Leo boarded the bright yellow school bus. Returning to the empty apartment, Liam bypassed the kitchen and walked straight to the wooden bookshelf in the corner of the living room. He reached out and pulled the heavy leather-bound volume, The Architecture of Hostile Defense, from the shelf, dusting off the cover with a calloused thumb. Next, he opened the bottom drawer of his dresser, retrieving a small mahogany box. Inside rested a pristine silver luxury watch, a dormant relic of his former empire. He strapped the heavy silver timepiece onto his wrist. It felt foreign against his oil-stained skin, yet perfectly balanced. He picked up his phone. Miles away, in a sterile glass-walled executive suite, Clara Sterling answered her ringing cell phone. "I will listen," Liam's deep voice stated. A sharp spark of relief flashed in her cold blue eyes. A sleek, black town car drifted through the morning fog, arriving at a prearranged, nondescript industrial lot on the outskirts of the city. Liam stood waiting, his broad frame cloaked in a dark overcoat, the silver luxury watch glinting discreetly beneath his sleeve. The rear window slid down. Clara Sterling's striking profile appeared, her eyes scanning the desolate surroundings with professional caution. Liam entered the vehicle. The interior was a sanctuary of premium leather and hushed technology, isolated from the grit of the outside world. Without a word, Clara handed him an encrypted digital tablet. The screen glowed with the aggressive expansion charts of Vanguard dynamics. Liam's eyes tracked the data with terrifying speed. His mind, dormant for 3 years, ignited with the complex geometry of financial warfare. "They aren't just looking for a transition of ownership," Liam noted, his voice devoid of warmth. "They want to liquidate the soul of the company." He identified the lead strategist for Vanguard, a man named Marcus Thorne, whose digital dossier revealed a history of cold, calculated corporate extractions. Clara watched him, her breath held. She saw the mechanic vanish, replaced by the most dangerous tactical mind she had ever encountered. "I need a secure room, 0 external access, and 48 hours, Liam stated. The car accelerated toward the towering glass spires of the city. The town car bypassed the gleaming main entrance, descending into the concrete shadows of Sterling Aerospace's underground loading dock. Liam was escorted to a windowless, secure data room on the 40th floor. It was a sterile vault equipped with multiple high-definition monitors. Clara stood in the doorway, her blue eyes reflecting a mix of immense pressure and profound trust. 48 hours, she confirmed softly. She closed the heavy steel door. Liam was entirely alone. He slowly removed his dark overcoat, meticulously rolling up the sleeves of his shirt. The heavy silver watch gleamed under the harsh fluorescent light as his hands hovered over the keyboard. Then he began to type. Hours dissolved into the silent rhythm of keystrokes. Liam's sharp features were painted in the blue glow of complex legal code and financial architectures. He was building a structural trap, a poison pill. He systematically isolated Sterling's core aerospace patents, the crown jewels of their engineering division. He bound those patents into an irrevocable humanitarian trust. If Vanguard Dynamics acquired a controlling stake, the proprietary technology would automatically become open source. Outside, night fell over the city. Clara paced her glass-walled office, gazing out at the illuminated skyline, feeling the crushing weight of the looming boardroom vote. Back in the quiet vault, Liam's exhausted but relentless eyes scanned the final paragraph. He pressed a single key. The trap was flawlessly set. Dawn broke over the glass spires of the city, casting a golden hue against the cold steel of the Sterling Aerospace building. The heavy steel door of the data vault finally clicked open. Liam Vance emerged, holding a thick, black leather folder. The mechanic was entirely gone. In his place stood the ghost of Wall Street, clad in a flawlessly tailored charcoal suit. His footsteps were completely silent as he navigated the long, pristine executive corridor toward the CEO's office. Inside the massive corner office, Clara stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathed in the soft, early morning light. Liam walked in and dropped the heavy black folder onto her sleek glass desk. "It's done," he stated simply. Clara turned, her blue eyes shifting from the defensive architecture he had built to the man who had built it. "Why did you really walk away, Liam?" He held her gaze. "Because the victories stopped mattering when I had no one left to share them with," he answered quietly. A profound silence settled over the room. For a fleeting second, the formidable corporate armor of both individuals seemed to fall away. Liam took a slow step back, his sharp features hardening into absolute professional resolve once more. "Win today, Clara." Liam did not leave the corporate building. He retreated silently to the sterile data vault, his brilliant mind pivoting rapidly from defensive architectures to offensive tracking. The defensive poison pill structure was flawless and complete, but a corporate fortress is entirely useless if the heavy gates are being quietly opened from the inside. Clara's trusted executive assistant quietly entered the vault. She delivered the restricted server logs on an encrypted drive, placing a fresh cup of black coffee on the desk. Liam delved immediately into the dense digital traffic. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned relentlessly for any hidden anomalies among the board members' highly encrypted internal corporate communications. He successfully isolated a series of suspicious outbound attachments. They were sent in the dead of night, meticulously masked behind complex layers of heavy corporate obfuscation. The digital breadcrumbs formed a faint but undeniable trail, leading directly to a complex web of shell companies registered in distant, unregulated offshore tax havens. Liam's calloused fingers stripped away the final layer of digital armor. The ultimate beneficial owner materialized on the screen, a hidden subsidiary directly controlled by Vanguard Dynamics. The true identity of the internal leak was finally confirmed. It was Arthur Pendleton, the lead board member and ostensibly Clara's most trusted senior corporate advisor. A high-end laser printer hummed to life in the dark corner of the vault, rapidly churning out the undeniable physical proof of the clandestine wire transfers. Liam gathered the warm, printed pages with precise movements, securing them safely inside a slim, blood-red folder. The ultimate weapon for the boardroom was forged. By 9 o'clock, the atmosphere within the Sterling Aerospace headquarters shifted. The corridors buzzed with the quiet, electric tension of an impending corporate takeover. Black luxury vehicles arrived at the main plaza. Marcus Thorne, the architect of Vanguard Dynamics' hostile expansion, stepped out with unbothered confidence. Beside him walked Arthur Pendleton, The senior board member moved with the ease of a man who believed his betrayal was entirely invisible. On the 42nd floor, Clara Sterling stood before a tall mirror. She adjusted the collar of her immaculate navy suit, her face an unreadable mask. Her reflection showed no fear, only the cold, inherited resolve of a CEO ready to defend her family's legacy at any cost. The heavy wooden doors of her office opened. Liam Vance stepped in, the blood-red folder resting securely against his charcoal suit. They did not speak. Words were no longer required. Clara gave a single, imperceptible nod and walked toward the exit. Liam followed half a step behind her. His presence was formidable, radiating a dark, calculated energy that silenced the hallway. Down in the boardroom, Arthur Pendleton checked his gold pocket watch, sharing a subtle, victorious smirk with Marcus Thorne across the polished table. Outside the boardroom, Clara's hand rested on the brass handle. She pushed the heavy double doors open, stepping into the center of the storm. The heavy double doors shut firmly behind Clara and Liam. The low murmur of the massive boardroom instantly flatlined into a charged, heavy silence. Unfazed, Marcus Thorne stood at the head of the table. He gestured toward a glowing projection displaying Vanguard Dynamics' aggressive restructuring framework. Beside him, Arthur Pendleton offered Clara a patronizing, warm smile, the practiced mask of a senior advisor hiding absolute corporate treason. Clara did not return the expression. She took her designated seat at the opposite end of the mahogany table, her posture radiating absolute stillness. "Before we review Vanguard's proposal," Clara stated, her voice cutting through the quiet, "I must introduce my newly appointed Chief Restructuring Officer, Liam Vance." The temperature in the room plummeted. Marcus Thorne's arrogant smile vanished instantly. The historical weight of that specific name echoed loudly in his mind. Liam stepped forward, moving with silent, predatory grace. He dropped the thick, black leather folder directly into the center of the polished wood. He methodically outlined the newly registered irrevocable trust. Every core aerospace patent owned by Sterling had been legally bound inside a humanitarian defensive structure. The fatal trigger was coldly clarified. Any unauthorized transition of corporate ownership would automatically release the proprietary technology into the public domain. The hostile acquisition was entirely neutralized. Thorne sank slowly back into his leather chair, staring at a billion-dollar takeover reduced to absolute zero. The grand boardroom remained shrouded in heavy silence. Marcus Thorne's imposing corporate presence had dissolved entirely into a posture of absolute defeat. Without uttering a single word of rebuttal, Thorne gathered his platinum briefcase. He avoided Clara's gaze completely as he walked out of the room. Arthur Pendleton cleared his throat, attempting to salvage the atmosphere. He adjusted his silk tie, carefully adopting the mask of a relieved and loyal advisor. "A brilliant maneuver, Clara," Pendleton said smoothly, his voice echoing in the vast space. "We have successfully weathered the storm." Clara did not acknowledge his compliment. She simply stared at him from the head of the table, her piercing blue eyes radiating an icy, unyielding calm. Liam stepped forward once again from the shadows of the room. In his large, steady hand, he held the slim, blood-red folder. With a smooth, deliberate motion, Liam slid the striking red folder across the highly polished mahogany. It came to a sudden halt directly in front of Pendleton. "Vanguard's offshore shell entities," Liam stated, his voice a low, gravelly hum, routed through 3 separate international holding accounts, terminating directly into your personal portfolio. Pendleton opened the folder. The undeniable physical proof of his clandestine wire transfers stared back at him. The color drained completely from his aging face. Clara leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but carrying the absolute weight of an empire. "You have exactly 1 hour to clear your office, Arthur." Stripped of his authority and his dignity, Arthur Pendleton stood up shakily. He left the blood-red folder on the table and walked toward the exit. The heavy brass latch clicked decisively as the doors sealed shut behind him. The boardroom was finally purged of its hidden threats. Clara remained seated at the head of the table, For the first time in 48 hours, she allowed a long, unsteady breath to escape her lips. The crushing weight of protecting a multi-billion-dollar empire slowly lifted from her shoulders. She leaned back against the dark leather of her chair. At the far side of the room, Liam stood silently by the floor-to-ceiling window. He looked out over the sprawling city, his posture relaxed but ever vigilant. Clara shifted her gaze toward him. She realized with acute clarity that the man standing by the glass had not just saved a company. He had preserved her father's life's work. "The defensive structure holds," Liam said quietly, his deep voice carrying easily across the vast, empty room. "The legacy is secure." Clara stood up, gracefully smoothing the fabric of her navy suit. The mask of the icy CEO softened into genuine, profound gratitude. She walked slowly toward the window, stopping a respectful distance from him. "My father would have known how to thank you properly," she murmured. "I am simply thanking you." Liam turned his head, his intense eyes meeting hers. He offered a single, measured nod. Together, they walked out of the silent boardroom. The following week, the corporate atmosphere within Sterling Aerospace shifted from one of frantic survival to systematic, cold reconstruction. Liam occupied the office adjacent to Clara's. His desk was no longer covered in mechanical blueprints, but in high-level organizational charts. He began the process of vetting the middle management layer, identifying and removing every individual linked to Vanguard's internal sabotage efforts. His methods were surgical. He did not seek confrontation. He simply audited their fiscal interactions and effectively neutralized their access to sensitive data. Clara observed his progress from her glass-walled office. She noted the efficiency with which the company was shedding its vulnerabilities. For the first time, she felt free to engage in the creative work she had neglected. She pored over long-dormant aerospace innovation files. Liam walked into her office mid-afternoon, carrying a slim digital report. His presence in the executive suite now felt as permanent as the architecture itself. "The internal security layer is fully reinforced," Liam reported. "We have successfully purged the remaining administrative threats identified by the server logs." Clara closed her file, a subtle, confident smile forming on her face. "Now, we can finally focus on the innovation we were meant to pursue." As the sun dipped below the horizon, they stood together before the office windows, watching the city lights ignite like a map of their reclaimed empire. The success at Sterling Aerospace brought quiet stability, yet Liam remained acutely aware that the past is a debt that eventually collects interest. An official notice arrived from the Federal Oversight Committee, citing an expansive audit into Linder and Howard's final years of operation. Liam held the document in his office, his face reflecting a familiar, weary stillness. The file name Linder and Howard acted like a cold shackle. He knew the audit would inevitably trace the firm's final restructuring strategies directly back to his own signatures from 3 years ago. Clara entered his office with a stack of quarterly projections, her demeanor professional and light, entirely unaware of the document on his desk. Liam instinctively turned the letter face down, his movements fluid yet slightly guarded. Clara's sharp eyes caught the subtle change in his posture. "We have a press inquiry regarding our patent trust," she mentioned, looking at him with curious, observant eyes. "They are asking about the architect behind the defense." Liam paused. "Keep the focus on the company, Clara. My involvement is a contractual detail, not a public statement." Clara studied him for a long, quiet moment. She sensed the invisible walls he had rebuilt around himself, walls she thought had begun to crumble. As she left, Liam returned his gaze to the audit notice. He understood that the peace he had found was temporary. His old life was knocking at the door. Midnight in the city, Liam bypassed the security protocols of his own apartment, slipping out into the rain-slicked streets. He drove to a forgotten data center warehouse, the last repository for Linder and Howard's physical archives. Liam moved through the darkness of the warehouse with military precision, his focus entirely on the singular goal, erasing his digital and physical trail. Meanwhile, In the silence of their shared executive floor, Clara grew uneasy. She entered Liam's office, finding it empty and cold. A misplaced document on his desk caught her attention, a fragment of the audit notice he had tried to hide. She realized the depth of his deception. The man she trusted to save her empire was keeping secrets that could burn it to the ground. Back at the warehouse, Liam pulled a metal filing cabinet open. He found the specific ledger he feared, his heartbeat steady as he fed the pages into a portable shredder. A sudden beam of light swept across the warehouse floor. Security was approaching. Liam vanished into the shadows before they could reach his position. He returned to the office at dawn, weary and soaked. He found Clara waiting for him in the reception area, the fragment of the audit notice in her hand. "Who are you, Liam?" she asked, the ice in her voice sharper than any blade. The walls between them had not just risen. They had become impenetrable. The morning sun illuminated the fractured trust between them in the reception area. Clara demanded the truth, her voice devoid of any previous warmth. Liam did not look away. He confessed his former identity as the lead strategist for Linder and Heir, the architect of ruthless corporate dismantling. "I built the exact system Vanguard is using against you," he stated coldly. "But I left it behind when the collateral damage cost me my family." Clara absorbed the immense gravity of his words. The man who had saved her empire was the very creator of the tactics she despised. She held up the torn audit notice. "The Federal Oversight Committee is coming. If they link your past to my company, we both fall." "The physical archives are already ashes," Liam replied, his posture unyielding. "But there is one final digital ledger located in a secure offshore server." Clara walked slowly to the heavy glass window, looking out at the waking city. She had to make a calculated choice between absolute ruin and risky trust. She turned back to face him, her piercing blue eyes calculating the immense corporate risk. "How much time do we have before the digital sweep begins?" Liam checked the heavy silver watch on his wrist. 72 hours. "But I need your executive clearance to breach the international firewall." Clara walked past him toward her office, pausing only for a fraction of a second. "You have your clearance. Do not make me regret this, Liam." Armed with the highest executive clearance, Liam descended once more into the sterile depths of the data vault. The final battle was entirely digital. He connected his encrypted drive to the mainframe. The heavy silver watch ticked loudly against the silence as he initiated the complex breach protocol. The target was a highly fortified offshore server, the final resting place of the Linder and Heir digital ledger. Liam's calloused fingers moved across the keyboard with blinding speed. He was systematically dismantling the very digital fortress he had constructed years ago. Miles away, inside the sleek headquarters of Vanguard Dynamics, warning lights silently illuminated Marcus Thorne's private terminal. An unauthorized entry was detected. Thorne stared at the glowing red alerts. He attempted to counter the breach, frantically deploying Vanguard's elite cybersecurity countermeasures to lock the intruder out. Back in the vault, Liam encountered the resistance. A subtle, cold smile touched his lips. He knew every flaw, every blind spot in their defensive architecture. With a final, decisive keystroke, Liam bypassed the international firewall. The screen flooded with the densely encrypted files of his past. He executed the absolute purge command. The digital ledger, the only remaining link between his former identity and Clara's empire, dissolved into irrecoverable fragmented code. The monitor screens flashed a stark, confirming green. The ghost of Wall Street had successfully erased his own grave. The federal audit would find absolutely nothing. The following morning, federal oversight investigators arrived at Sterling Aerospace. Their presence was formal, their suits sharp, carrying the weight of governmental authority. They meticulously swept through the corporate servers, searching for the phantom links connecting Clara's empire to the dismantled Linder and Heir network. From the glass walkway above, Clara and Liam observed the audit in absolute silence. Their posture was impenetrable, betraying no sign of the recent digital purge. Hours passed. The lead investigator finally snapped his briefcase shut. The sweeping search had yielded nothing but pristine, unblemished corporate records. As the investigators departed the lobby, the invisible tension suffocating the executive floor instantly dissolved. The dangerous gamble had paid off perfectly. Returning to the inner office, Clara walked toward Liam's desk. The space that once held the threatening audit notice was now entirely clear. "The storm has passed," Clara stated softly, the sharp, defensive ice in her demeanor melting into genuine relief. Liam stood up, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored shirt. "The past is permanently closed," he affirmed, his deep voice carrying a new, profound calm. Their eyes met. The walls of corporate survival that had separated them were gone, replaced by a quiet, unspoken mutual gravity. Clara offered a rare, genuine smile. Side by side, the two architects of the new empire looked out toward the endless, golden horizon of the city. A month later, the landscape of Sterling Aerospace had transformed completely. The company was no longer a target. It was an undisputed fortress. To solidify their victory and Project Absolute Stability, Clara hosted a grand corporate gala in the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel. The room was a sea of high society, glittering with crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, and the elite of the corporate world. Clara descended the grand staircase. She wore an elegant, sweeping navy evening gown, looking every bit the triumphant queen of her empire. Waiting at the bottom of the stairs was Liam. The grease-stained mechanic was gone forever. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored black tuxedo. He offered his hand to her. Clara took it gracefully, their touch sending a subtle but undeniable spark between the two leaders. Together, they navigated the crowded ballroom. Competitors and allies alike parted respectfully as the new power couple of the aerospace industry walked past. Arthur Pendleton and Marcus Thorne were nothing but distant, defeated memories, entirely erased from this shining new chapter. They stepped onto a quiet, private balcony overlooking the city lights, escaping the noise and flashing cameras of the celebration. Liam handed her a delicate glass of champagne. The clink of their glasses was a quiet, private celebration of their shared victory and the undeniable bond they had forged. A few days later, the massive steel doors of Sterling Aerospace's primary R&D hangar slid open, revealing the future they had fought to protect. Sitting at the center of the vast facility was a breathtaking aerospace prototype, its sleek titanium hull gleaming under the industrial halogens. Clara stood before her elite team of engineers. Her voice echoed through the hangar, outlining a bold, visionary expansion into commercial orbit. Liam stood faithfully at her right side. He seamlessly cross-referenced complex aerodynamic schematics on a digital tablet, operating as her perfect strategic counterpart. Clara glanced at him, receiving a subtle, confirming nod. The mechanics of their partnership were flawless, a synchronized engine of corporate power. The weekend brought a rare, vibrant peace. The scene shifted to a bright, sunlit urban park, surrounded by the towering skyline they now controlled. Liam was pushing his 6-year-old son, Leo, on a wooden swing. The cold, calculating ghost of Wall Street was entirely replaced by a smiling, devoted father. Clara approached along the paved path, dressed in a casual but elegant beige trench coat, holding 2 steaming cups of artisan coffee. She handed one to Liam as Leo ran over to greet her. Clara smiled warmly, engaging with the boy with an easy, unexpected grace. The three of them walked together beneath the autumn trees. It was the quiet, profound realization of a new, unbreakable family formed in the fires of survival. The following Tuesday, global financial news networks broadcasted a stunning reversal of fortune. The ticker at the bottom of the screen showed Vanguard dynamics in freefall. Marcus Thorne, the aggressive architect of hostile takeovers, was filmed being escorted from his own headquarters by federal agents, the result of a highly encrypted, anonymous tip. Clara watched the live broadcast from her executive suite, her expression one of calm, unbothered satisfaction. The predator had officially become the prey. Liam entered the office, placing a thick, premium folio on her desk. It was not a defense strategy. It was the acquisition contract for Vanguard's remaining viable assets. Clara took a sleek gold pen and signed her name with deliberate, heavy strokes. Sterling Aerospace had just consumed its greatest enemy. They walked out of the office together. The sprawling corporate floor was no longer filled with frantic tension, but with the quiet hum of an undisputed empire. The narrative shifted to the desolate beauty of the company's private launch site at dusk. The titanium aerospace prototype was slowly rolling toward the launch pad. Clara and Liam stood shoulder to shoulder inside the fortified glass observation bunker, the glow of the control panels illuminating their faces. The digital countdown echoed through the speakers. It was the culmination of their brutal corporate war, manifested in raw physical engineering. The primary thrusters ignited with a deafening roar. A brilliant, expanding wave of golden fire bathed the observation deck, reflecting in their unwavering eyes. 1 year later, the world was a different place for Sterling Aerospace. The aggressive corporate wars were replaced by a legacy of innovation and peace. Clara Sterling was no longer just a CEO. She was the architect of a new industrial age, leading from a place of absolute, grounded confidence. Liam had officially stepped into the role of COO, his genius now fully directed toward humanity's advancement rather than profit-driven dismantling. The office atmosphere was warm, collaborative, and devoid of the lethal paranoia that had once defined it. Late one Friday, the three of them, Clara, Liam, and Leo, were back in the park, but this time, there was no rush, no secret documents, no impending doom. They sat on a quiet park bench, watching the sunset cast long, gentle shadows over the grass, while Leo played nearby with a paper airplane. The weight of the past had long since dissolved, replaced by the profound, quiet rhythm of their chosen life together. Liam took Clara's hand, a simple gesture of commitment that mirrored the stability they had finally built for themselves. The city skyline twinkled in the distance, the very empire they had defended and rebuilt with their own hands. As the stars began to appear, the three of them stood up and walked away into the soft evening glow, the silence of their victory more powerful than any applause.